Picture this. It's a perfect spring day. You and your crew are soaking up the sun, live music in the background, craft beer in your hand, wandering past rows of breweries, local vendors, and food trucks serving up some serious flavor. That's Wild West Brewfest, and it's happening April 11th and 12th in Pflugerville. It's the ultimate craft beer festival run by the Rotary Club of Pflugerville, and every pour gives back, with net profits going to scholarships and local charities. So, tickets are going fast. Grab yours now at wildwestbrewfestpflugerville.com. Today on CityCast Austin, the Trump administration is dismantling the education department and threatening funding that supports vulnerable students. So what options are left for school districts to innovate and support faculty and students on their terms? Our guest today is a superintendent at a nearby school district that has implemented a fresh approach. And that approach is working. Academic success is rising among elementary students, and teachers with 6 or more years of experience are some of the highest paid in the state. It's Tuesday, April 8th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I am here today with Mark Estrada, superintendent for Lockhart ISD. Thanks for being here. I've been hearing some good stuff about what's going on in Lockhart ISD, so I'm excited to talk about it. So first, we're going to start with kind of what I feel like is the elephant in the room in every room I walk into. The Department of Education is being dismantled. And so I want to know from you, what sign do you think that's sending to teachers and educators?
I think that, I can tell you firsthand experience. I just finished a tour of our district where I was having teacher forums and just sitting, knee to knee across our teachers and listening to their thoughts and concerns and ideas for the future. And a question that I continue to receive was this question of what does this mean for us? Will there be any impact on us? That was a common theme. And, while I'm not so sure the long-term effects that this may have, I can tell you the immediate, there is concern. There's worry. There's stress over what may or may not happen. And, what we continue to tell our teachers is at this time, we want to focus on what we control. And that's our students, making sure their needs are being met. But certainly this kind of shake up at our nation's capital isn't providing our nation's teachers much comfort.
Are there any kind of impacts that you're worried about specifically happening in Lockhart at all? Or any concerns that you're happening that will specifically affect Lockhart?
At this time, I don't have any real concerns that there's going to be anything that happens to us immediately, regardless of what may happen or flexibilities that may come from what's going on in Washington. I think that our staff here is going to ensure that our kids are protected, that their rights are preserved, and that we're doing everything possible to meet all of their needs.
Now, I want to specifically talk about teachers really quick, because for me, we should protect them at all costs, give them all the money that they could possibly need. It's one of the, I think, should be one of the most treasured professions anywhere, personally, because the way I think, I don't have children, but like your kids are with teachers 8 to 10 hours a day. They see more of your children, I think, sometimes than parents do. I know when I was a kid, I saw my teachers. They were like my second parents a lot of times. So I'm always worried about what they have to go through. I have a couple of friends that are educators too, and family members. School is changing, and it's changed tremendously over the past few years specifically. What I'm hearing is just like not enough resources. It's kind of like parents, like you make it work. You make do with what you got. And I feel like teachers are like they own that. They do it. But what do you think? Like from your view, what's the biggest challenge?
I think that that you kind of hit some of the major things that I see and what I hear from teachers. And I think it continues to compound, over time. You had teachers who are making do, as you said, but it continues to become more and more burdensome. There continues to be more and more requirements of teachers. No longer are they just the teacher. Now they're the counselor, they're the tutor, they're the social worker. At times they're doing things that, we 20 years ago, 50 years ago, maybe we would have expected that the parents would have been doing more of.
Yeah.
And teachers continue to find themselves in these spaces that maybe wasn't the case, 20, 50 years ago. People go into education and become teachers because they care about kids. And I feel that that kindness that is in their heart at times, whether intentional or not, has been exploited, and it's reaching this boiling point to where teachers are saying this is enough. They're dropping out of the profession at massive rates. That is not sustainable, because they feel time and time again that they're having to do too much with too less. It's increasingly not to where teachers can afford to live in the communities that they work in, because they can't afford to pay the rent. They can't afford to buy a house anymore. The teacher pay has not increased with
Right.
the rise in inflation that we've seen the last 10, 20 years.
Right. It feels like to me it's a no-brainer. It's like, if you're going to expect more, you're going to have to provide more. But instead, what we're seeing is, increase of things that don't seem to be helpful to me, like religion. So like, there's been this increase of like this push for religion coming into our public schools over recent years. And I'm curious if you're seeing that land for teachers in any way. Are you hearing from your teachers fear or discomfort?
I haven't heard a lot of concerns regarding religion specifically. I think, in the state of Texas, there's a curriculum going around specifically for language arts that has some Bible-infused content in it, but that really hasn't been a huge concern here from our teachers. We have a big committee made up of parents, teachers as well, and it looks like they're going in a different direction towards a different curriculum. So that really hasn't been that big of an issue. But what is an issue are the constant unfunded mandates.
Yep.
Teachers are constantly asked to do more and more. Schools are constantly, districts are constantly asked to do more and more. But in the state of Texas, the funding is not following those mandates. So it creates this environment to where it's all landing on the desk of teachers, and it's not fair. It's not sustainable. We're seeing, I don't know, recently I read a report that about over 55% of the teachers, first-year teachers who were hired in the state of Texas last year, were uncertified.
Wow.
That is a troubling statistic that clearly shows something is wrong here.
Wow. I didn't even know that was legal.
Oh yeah. You're seeing across the state of Texas, school districts having to hire people who are uncertified, having to get them at alternative certification programs, having to use district innovation to give them jobs, and those types of things. It's happening at a drastically increasing rate.
Wow. Does Lockhart ISD plan on using that blue bonnet curriculum where it's like $60 per student budget bump thing? Are you guys going to do that?
I don't believe so. Our committee that is reviewing the new curriculum materials seems to be going in a much different direction. So I don't think that is even up for consideration in our school district, at least. I know that other school districts are considering it.
Right. Hey y'all, Nikki here. I wanted to tell you about something that you need to save the date for. Austin Community Foundation has been a trusted partner in local philanthropy for individuals, families, and businesses looking to do good in Central Texas. And on April 29th, Austin Community Foundation invites you to Austin in Common at ACL Live Moody Theater. Now, this is an event like no other. It's focused on storytelling. emceed by Miles Blockson, the night will feature 4 community leaders who will share their Austin stories, their diverse experiences of living, working, and raising families right here in Austin. It's a chance to celebrate our togetherness because no matter who you are or where you're from, we all have Austin in common. Sponsorships and tickets are available at austinincommon.org. So get yours today. That's austinincommon.org. There's a new show coming to the Zach Theater, and it sounds incredible. Y'all have to go check out Bob and Jean, A Love Story, written by Robert Schenken, a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. So when Bob is deployed overseas and Jean tours with the USO, distance tests their devotion like never before. It's a wartime romance that captures the rush, thrill, and doubt of falling and staying in love. And y'all, this is a true story drawn from Schenken's own parents' letters. And it reminds us that even in the hardest times, love endures. So check out Bob and Jean on stage through April 19th. You can get your tickets at zachtheater.org. That's ZACH theater.org. So I want to shift gears a little bit. That you have completely rebuilt the hierarchy at Lockhart ISD schools by elevating some teachers to lever leader. Am I saying that right? Lever leader position, where they manage, advise, and report up to the superintendent on other teachers. So I'm curious, how did this program affect the budget? How did it get started? Just tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So how much time do we have? Because this a long story.
Well, I mean, we got a little time.
No, and it was really kind of the culmination of some experiences that our leadership team had with the Holdsworth Center. They do great work. And about 6 years ago, we started our partnership with them. And one of the things that we did was we went to Singapore on an education trip to learn about how in Singapore they've been able to go from a third world country, over 60 years or so, to an economic powerhouse in the world. And how did that happen? And what we learned was a very intentional and massive effort in public education there. And the system that they have, while their government system is much different than us, we can still learn from how they educate their kids there. And one of the things they do is really invest in teachers, and not just monetarily, but the teacher's ability to influence the day-to-day decisions that they have on their campus, to influence the strategic shifts that campuses make throughout a school year. Teachers there are highly regarded, and they have a lot of decision-making power at the campus. And so we were learning so much about how their system was set up, how they had pathways that teachers could go into to grow in their career in Singapore, to where sometimes they didn't even have to leave the classroom. They could become master teachers in the system. They could have pathways not only for their career, but also in making more money, so that they didn't have to leave the classroom. What was really striking to me was when I met a teacher at a school, and I asked her, about if she ever wanted to be a principal. And she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Why would I want to do that? In my role now, I help decide on the curriculum. I help decide on the assessments. I help decide on the professional development. And further, I make more money than the principal."
Wow.
And
What?
So I was like, oh my goodness, right? So that was 6 years ago. We started asking ourselves questions, and I saw a study from the Charles Butt Foundation, and consistently they've heard three big themes in the state of Texas and why teachers are leaving. One is pay. Two is a lack of career opportunities and growth. And three is the ability to have influences on the decisions that affect their day to day. And I was like, okay, this is speaking to me now, because I just learned about this in Singapore. Now we're seeing the data from Texas teachers. We need to develop something that addresses those things. So what we did, we call our shared leadership model, is we piloted at one campus 5 years ago, and we just started at one campus and said, okay, so if leadership would look different, what could it look like? And we knew that we had to get classroom teachers who were still in the classroom in a position to make key decisions around curriculum, instruction, assessment, professional development on the campus. They needed to be a part of that principal's decision-making team, And what it did also was really redefine what it means to be a principal in Lockhart, because now it's not just one person making all these decisions. They have a team
Right.
of people who are still in the classroom. And these teachers, what we call lever leaders, they teach half a day, and the other half a day, they're not assigned students, which is, we learned that in Singapore too. Like in Texas, we often give teachers more responsibility, but don't give them the time to do it.
Right.
Right. So we had to give them that release time. And then thirdly, what we did is we provided a pretty large incentive, a $10,000 stipend for these master lever leader teachers. So we have teachers who next year will be making over $100,000 here in Lockhart ISD. Now, I think long term, how do we get more and more teachers? But we had to start somewhere, and we know that our great teachers who are doing great things for kids and are leading our campuses with our campus shared leadership teams. We wanted to start there, so we're just very proud that we're chipping away at that. We call it pathway to 100K.
This is awesome. So you essentially figured out a way to give teachers ownership. I think people underestimate how important it is to give people, for lack of a better way to say it, stock in what they're doing. Like, if my opinion matters and I have say so in the way things are run, I'm bought it. You buy in. You buy in because you have owner. It's like you a feeling of ownership. That is brilliant.
Yeah, and I think the learning too that, when you look at typical schools, people leave the classroom. Maybe they're a teacher one year, the next year they're a coach or they're AP. But
Yeah.
the minute you leave that classroom and you're no longer in it with kids, there's something about the respect that kind of goes with that. It's no, your opinion is not as valid as it is if you're still
Right.
doing the work as a teacher. So I think
Right.
that was a big a learning part for us, is that the credibility that these lever leaders have, because they are still doing the work. They're still working with kids. They still have classrooms. They still have lesson plans. They still have to grade papers. They
Yeah.
still have parents they're talking to. They have all the stuff, and yet they're still supporting kids at a high level. And now they're leading teams and they're sharing the leadership with the campus principal. Some of them are doing work in special ed. Some of them are doing work in bilingual education. Some of them want to be a principal, and they're doing discipline stuff or bus stuff. So we're just sharing all the things that have to decisions that have to be made on a campus that typically in most schools in America and in Texas, the principal is making all these decisions, and everyone's
Right.
wondering why and how these decisions are being made. Now we're sharing that with teachers who are representing their colleagues as well.
And elevating their career path on top of that. I love that. So you mentioned 100,000, which is this pathway to 100,000. You are speaking my language. I feel like pay the pay that teachers get is just not nearly enough. So I saw that Lockhart ISD's veteran teachers are among the highest paid in Central Texas.
We're second for anyone with 6 years and over, but
Ah,
we're about to be number one, by the
nice.
way. But here's what we've done. Our teacher pay scale looks very different than almost everyone in the state of Texas. What people do typically is they pay. You see a lot of people. Oh, first year teacher, straight out of college. We're going to pay you $60,000 or what have you. The problem with those models is that you teach for 30 years and first year teachers are making 60 and your 30-year teachers making 67. Like
Oh my
there's
God.
no difference
No.
between or motivation or honor of the work and experience. So 5 years ago, we did a big shift and we said, you know what? We need to compete at that 0 year straight out of college level, but that's not that's not who we're trying to lift up and honor. We need to make sure that we're the highest paid for people with experience, because that's who we want to recruit. That's certainly who we want to retain once we have them. That's who our kids deserve.
What's he
So
trying to keep? Yeah.
exactly. And I think certainly once they get here and they realize, oh man, okay, yeah, year 6, a big raise is coming, to where now our spread is different, so that it honors that experience that teachers have. It honors their commitment to the profession. And quite frankly, one of the things it's doing is that it's no longer making it to where if I want to make more money, I have to lose the classroom. right? So we actually have the opposite of some people say a problem. I'm like, it's not a problem. This is what I want to happen. I want people
Yeah.
to do what they're passionate about, and not feel that they have to leave a position for money. So, for example, we have some of our master teachers. If they're going to be an AP, it's possible they take a pay cut. It's highly possible they're going to take a pay cut. So now it's causing them pause of like, well, do I really want to leave the classroom?
Now, when you say AP, what does that mean?
An assistant principal, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, okay.
So now it's no longer, if I want to make more, I have to leave the classroom. Now it's, do I really want to leave the classroom? Am I leaving for the right reasons? And pay isn't going to be the reason you're going to go for the administrative route, because either it's a wash, or in some cases, it might be even a pay cut to do that.
In order to keep this model and keep your teacher pay competitive, do you have to cut other things?
So we certainly, as a school district in the state of Texas, we have to prioritize everything that we do, right?
Yeah.
And we're not a school district that, is having to lay off people, has a deficit budget, so we've been able to do this and maintain a balanced budget. But to us, it goes back to how are we involving our staff in our budget decision-making process? So we do an exercise called participatory budgeting, and we've been doing this for about 4 years now. And what I have learned is that teachers and our staff would tell us that we need to invest our budget in things that I never would have thought they would have wanted. I'll give you a real example. So we knew that we needed to increase our special education funding. So we looked at, okay, so this is our budget. We're going to invest $250,000 in our special education department. We brought all the special education staff to our central office, and they said, all right. And then we told them, we got $250,000. What are all the ideas you have that we need to invest this money in? So the teachers gave us all the ideas, and then we said, okay, we're going to find out how much each idea costs. We're going to have another meeting. We brought them all back. We had all the costs, and we said, okay, tell us how we need to invest this. And they went through and decided, you know what? Actually, Mr. Strano, we don't need this. We can even cut and add more if we did this.
That.
So that participatory budgeting helps us ensure that we're really efficient with our funds, but more importantly, that the staff understands how we're spending our money. And the staff understands they have a voice in how we're spending our money. Another thing we did that is total, I would have never done this. We've been doing this for 6 years. As a fast growth district, we struggle with, having to put up portables and spending all this money on portable buildings when it could be going to paying our staff, etc. So we told our staff, we got them all in all of our elementaries. There's 450 teachers in an auditorium. And we said, guys, this is the problem. If we have to buy one portable, that's $300,000 for a portable building. Or
wow.
What else? What else can we do? Can we maybe add an extra student and pay you extra for that? These are ideas that teachers were telling us, which I was like, y'all gonna get me run out of this place. I'm not about to even say this stuff. I was like, y'all gonna get me hung out here. But when we explained it to the teachers, he said, do you want, a couple of extra students and we pay you $2,500 a student? Or do you just want us to build this portable and, you go to 18 students, but that we spend all this money on this depreciating
building,
building, that's not safe, etc. And 89% of our teachers told me, give me 2 extra kids and $5,000 and don't waste money on that.
What?
Yep.
85%?
89.
89. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Guess what we did? We pumped the brakes on those portables. We didn't buy any more portables. Teachers were getting the opportunity to make extra money. I had one teacher tell me, Ms. Strada, that it's pretty rare I get 100% of my students every single day. So I pretty much have 22 kids every day, but I just added $5,000 to my salary. And right. you're helping that situation.
I love this. I love this approach of just like making it something that everybody has input in. It has to feel good just to be heard, just to have your administrative say, okay, we see it. We understand this is what's going on, but here's the issue. We know money talks, pay raises are great, but there are other ways because you seem to be kind of like thinking outside of the box. So, what other ways do you think districts can keep teachers happy aside from the pay raises?
I think that my school board president and myself 6 years ago started doing campus forums. We go to every campus two times a year, and we sit down and we listen. And ensuring that staff feels heard and valued
Yeah.
goes such a long way. And we take that feedback, and what we try to do is, all right, what are some things that they're telling us that we can show them we're hearing and we can take action tomorrow. There are some things that are more complex, and it's like, okay, guys, we're gonna include that in our budget talks with the board, and we're gonna try to work on a long term. But every now and then there are little things that we can do. A teacher comes in and, Ms. Strada, oh, our rooms have not been dusted for 2 weeks, and you better guess what? Those rooms gonna be spick and span, and they know they were heard and
Yes.
something is done about it.
That's a
and,
small
and
ask.
yeah, and they feel valued, and they know that we are going to, the first couple years we did it, it was rough. Like, I mean, it was.
Oh yeah,
it was rough.
they're gonna give it to you.
They were giving it to me, but now it's a conversation. And one of the things I was telling my school board presidents, like, they keep coming back and they show up. They don't have time to do it if they didn't feel like we were listening and doing something. And I think teachers, they want, and all staff members, our paraprofessionals, etc., they want to be heard, and they want to know that you are fighting for them. They understand the context and Texas that we're in. They understand that we can't do everything that they need within the budget that the state of Texas gives us. But when we're listening to them, now we're partners.
Yeah, that makes all the difference.
And it's not a misplaced anger. It's not a misplaced, they're looking at the superintendent. It's like, what about, our governor? What about the legislature? Like, how are we together in this? And I think that's been a huge thing that has helped us get to this point to where, before I was superintendent, we were in the 60% of teachers who felt pride to work in our school district. Now, last year, we had 94% people proud to work here.
Nice.
Yep.
I know that you had said voters approved a tax rate increase in November of 2023. But it's like, I think that the way your model works also lends to, if taxpayers see that this model is working, teachers are happy, you got this 94 percentile of people feeling pride to work for Lockhart ISD. I also think taxpayers are more likely to be like, yeah, wherever we can pitch in. If you need it from us, wherever we can pitch in, that's what we're going to do because you're keeping our educators happy. And so do you think that in school districts that are much larger, do you think that this is something that they can still implement? Because y'all aren't small, but just like larger.
To me, it's easier. We don't have the economies of scale that large districts get to benefit from. Like in our district, we got about 7,000 kids, and really, to me, the larger you are, the easier this work should be, because you have that. Just the scale in itself gives you the ability to think differently. The biggest hurdle, and this was my biggest hurdle, quite frankly. I as a principal, as a teacher, I was one of these whatever it takes type of teachers, whatever it takes type of principals.
Yeah.
And I drove really, really hard. And what I have learned is that we cannot lead like that anymore. Like, we have to change our leadership approach. We have to work with people. We're not going to fire our way to excellence. We've got to meet people where they are, grow them, invest in them. Because like I told you earlier, over half the teachers in the state of Texas who are a first-year teacher are uncertified. Who are you going to get? Who are you going to get next year? Another uncertified, person with not that much experience. So when we have good people who like kids, who work hard, they have the intangibles, maybe their instructional practices aren't the best, we need to support them. We need to grow them. We need to trust them. We need to listen to them. We have to do everything possible to help retain those people. And I think so many leaders, it's my way or the highway type of thing.
Yep.
And we've got to move past that. And it may go a little slower. It may, the change may happen at the pace that is slower than what we want. But when we're making progress, that helps all kids, because this burn them and turn them type of approach that people had 10, 15 years ago is part of the issue that we're in right now.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Since there are so many Austinites moving to Lockhart, it feels really good to, it feels, and I'm not, trying to start any smack, so don't send us any emails, but I love that you guys are becoming this example of how things can work differently. And I know that my friends that have moved to Lockhart from Austin because of affordability or whatever, they're just loving it. And so I'm, maybe what you guys can be is just like, this is a model. Things can be like this. We're sister cities or whatever, but your independent, your school districts can be better and more robust or different. Maybe we won't say better, but it seems better to me.
Yeah, and I would never say, we're all in public education. Everyone's working hard,
Yeah.
And I think one of the challenges and conversations that we've had internally is that at some point we have to decide we can't be everything for everybody. What are we going to try to be good at here in Lockhart?
Yeah.
What do our parents want us to be good at? What are the things that are important to our parents? And that's where we're going to focus on. And that's what we're trying to do here is listen to everyone involved in this education process and try to focus on those things, because, unfortunately in the state of Texas, we don't have the state level support from our state leaders. Everything we do is a prioritization because the needs are so great.
Yeah.
We don't have the resources to try to be everything for everybody. So we just try to focus on what our parents expect, what our kids need, and then we meet them there and try to grow from there.
And it seems to be working. Mark, thank you for being here. Thank you for talking to me about this and
Thank you.
filling me in on what y'all doing. I can't wait to tell all of my other friends.
Yeah, have them come down. I'm sure, we're a growing district, so we're always posting positions for growth. And, Lockhart, we're more than barbecue, more than barbecue for sure.
Of course, you heard it here. Everybody, you heard it here. That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Lockhart ISD's website and learn more about the district's work with the Holdsworth Center in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.